I'd almost felt like, oh, I had just followed through on my parents' plan for me my whole life. Is everything meant to happen for a reason? No, I fundamentally disagree with that. Like I work my tail off because I want to show them that like I'm worth it. When you're doing actual engineering work, you can make a difference. That's the motivation that gets me excited and gets me passionate about the work I do.
Welcome to the first official episode of the inspobrew podcast, where we stir passion and sip innovation. The premise of this podcast is I'll be having coffee chats, sometimes with coffee, sometimes without, with inspiring guests who are living outside of their comfort zone and are taking things one step further to create an impact. And on this episode, I'm super excited to be talking with a fourth-year computer and electrical engineering student at UW. He's also a photographer, filmmaker, previous Tesla intern, and potentially soon-to-be full-time Tesla employee. Welcome, Nicholas Quintana.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here, Nicholas. It means a lot that you're on the first episode. And I think it's really iconic that you're the first guest because how we met is coming full circle now. Pretty much, we met last year. I was in a public speaking class, and for one of our projects, my group and I decided to go around campus and ask students if they know of any university program stereotypes. And you were one of the first people we came up to interview. I'll put a clip of the interview here if you're watching this on YouTube. And I just find it really cool that I interviewed you then, and I'm also interviewing you now. But not only that, I remember when I came up to you, I saw on your laptop screen that you were applying to Tesla, or like you were figuring out your application. I just saw the Tesla logo. Like, do you remember that?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure now that I'm thinking back on that, I had just gotten word that they wanted to schedule an interview with me, which was just, a big step for me personally and, my career growth. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it was right around just about a year ago, maybe 11 months ago, maybe 13 months ago, but almost 1 year to the day, it was when we first met.
Yeah, it's insane. Yeah, he's been really helpful and helping out with all these projects. So I really appreciate it. And then, so yeah, we'll talk about the Tesla internship in a bit, but I want to just start off by introducing you to our audience and everyone. So how would you describe yourself? What do you want people to know right off the bat, about you?
I mean, I don't think I'm anything too special, but I don't know. I have a lot of different hobbies, and I think that makes me a little bit more interesting. I've also lived in a lot of different places, so I've sort of I'm very much, I'm not the average person. I've definitely lived a bit of a different life, but it's been really exciting for me, and I think.
Would you say because I mean you have a big work ethic right now, would you say you've always had this ambition to and passion to everything you've been doing?
Yeah, I would say so. My mom and dad are big inspirations in my life, and they're both very passionate and dedicated people. My mom has her own business, and she's done quite well for herself. She's earned herself a couple of reward trips and taken me to far-flung places of the world. For example, in 11th grade, my mom did so well within her company. They sent her on a trip to Thailand, and she was able to take me with her. So, and, my dad, he's a university professor in Boston right now. And, he's just been, both my parents have been such a big inspiration in my life. They've just instilled a work ethic in me, and it's really taken me far. I mean, it's taken me from where I was in Boston to Waterloo. And then, as you mentioned, I did work at Tesla. So it took me to California too, and, a couple other places. So I'm very thankful to have positive role models in my life. And they've really set me up for a good future.
Wow. So would you say they were kind of leading by example? Would they also kind of give you these maybe lectures or tell you about all these things? Or you just kind of, it's just kind of ingrained in you, you saw what they were doing and that almost kind of?
Well, definitely a bit of both. My parents they're both smart people. My mom has a master's and my dad has a PhD. So it's definitely, I'm thankful that I have parents who are not only educated, but value education. That's not a value that's valued so much in every household. And I think there's definitely been a shift now, but especially where I grew up in Tennessee, it was a bit more common for people to just finish high school and then maybe do a 2-year college degree. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, my parents, because they'd been in academia, they've met a couple of different people and have been able to give me a bit more worldly of advice. So it was a really good thing growing up with them. I think they were good parents overall. Very good parents.
Yeah, that's so awesome. That's so great. So you are in computer and electrical engineering, and I really want to know, like, what made you want to go into it? Was this like something you really wanted to do, like, from the start?
That's sort of an interesting story, and I don't know if you know this, but so basically, my grandfather was from Chile on my dad's side, and in Chile, if you get into a prestigious school, they will pay for a full ride. The government will pay for a full ride scholarship for you to go and pursue higher education. So my grandfather, through a combination of grants from the Chilean government and the Chilean power authority, like Ontario Hydro, but for Chile, gave him a grant to go study at the University of Michigan. And he got his PhD there in electrical engineering. And it was a big deal because he was the first PhD electrical engineer at Chile's hydro company, like their power company. And so with my grandfather's education and background, he was able to escape Pinochet's rise when he came up to power in Chile. And he actually landed a job here at the University of Waterloo in the 1970s teaching electrical and computer engineering. And then my grandfather's two sons, my dad and my uncle, both came to Waterloo for electrical and computer engineering. My mom studied here at the University of Waterloo. My aunt studied at Wilfrid Laurier just down the street. And so I applied to a lot of places all throughout Canada because I'm a Canadian citizen. And I did want to come back to Canada because I'd grown up in my whole life in America. But when I got the opportunity, and I didn't think I was going to get into Waterloo, but when I got the opportunity to come here, I sort of knew it was the place I had to go because it's the place that just, I've been growing up hearing about my whole life. There's a picture of me when I'm, I think, about 5 years old wearing a hard hat, like my dad's old University of Waterloo hard hat. And, I didn't know anything different at the time. I just thought, oh, my dad just has a hard hat. But now I see when I've come to Waterloo, it's a tradition. And it's kind of funny that, Waterloo's been ingrained in me so deep.
That's so awesome. And I feel like I love how you have such like a positive, obviously, like going here. This is because there's so many other schools out there, and kind of coming here and how you're really proud that you're here. That's awesome because, like, for me, it was a little bit different of an experience. Like my mom, like, she went to University of Waterloo too, and because I knew, like, she went to it, I just kind of, like, I didn't want to follow, like, my parents' path. And so I was, like, nervous to, like, I didn't want to, like, this wasn't my top school. I didn't want to do it. So, like, yeah, so it's interesting to know how so many of your family members went, and then you're able to continue this, like, legacy, and you're super proud you're here. And I mean, this is, like, a top innovation school and, like, top for engineering too. So you're really getting, like, awesome education. Yeah.
Definitely. And, I mean, it's not all sunshine and roses. Obviously this is a podcast and we're trying to keep this a bit more lighthearted. But I definitely struggled with that a little bit because it almost felt like I'd been set up on this one track path my whole life. I'd almost felt like, oh, my dad's an engineer. So, like, I did STEM camp when I was a kid, and I did lessons during the summer to improve my math skills. And my whole life, my parents were trying to push me towards STEM. So, yeah, it wasn't necessarily all a happy thing coming to Waterloo because I'd almost felt like, oh, I had just followed through on my parents' plan for me my whole life. But at the same time, I understand what they did. And I don't think, looking at my life now compared to some of the other people from my high school and people I knew back when I lived in Tennessee, I'm really thankful I had this opportunity. I didn't realize how lucky I was until I got to Waterloo because there's so much opportunity here with the co-op program, so many innovative people that you get to meet, and just, people like you, people my classmates, they have a passion and they want to do something. I think Waterloo's the school of doers. They want to do something. They want to work. They want to build something. And that's really attractive to me.
And do you think if you went to, like, a different university, you would have, obviously would have been, like, completely different, but can you, like, just picture it? Like, can you see what your life looked like
Oh, definitely. I mean, I got into a decent number of schools. Like I got into UBC and I got into Queen's, and those were the other two big schools I was considering. And both of those are great schools in their own right. UBC is one of the most beautiful campuses I've ever visited. If you ever get the chance to go to Vancouver, I would highly recommend it. Have you been there?
No, I want to go.
Yeah. It's beautiful lands. It's just right on the tip of a peninsula, Vancouver. And it's got beautiful, beautiful ocean views and forests all around it. And Queens, I definitely think, would have the most social and most support network. I know Queens alumni always talk about their alumni support network and how it's second to none in Canada. But overall, I'm really happy that I ended up here at Waterloo. I met my wonderful girlfriend of 4 years and about a month. So, yeah, it's a fascinating question you asked me, like, what would my life be if I wasn't here? And it'd be a little bit funny because we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Right, yeah. So you, like, looking back, you wouldn't change a thing, then you're really, like, super grateful and, like, for everything that happened.
Yeah, definitely. I think that everything that happened to me, good and bad, set me up for the life I lead today.
Yeah, that's so inspiring. So we talked a little bit, so you did mention how, like, this, like, even though this is such a great school, it isn't always, like, such sunshines and rainbows. Could you get into, like, maybe your favorite, and then you can emphasize the least favorite part about your program?
Sure. I'll start with the least favorite first. Sure. Yeah, I definitely think that the EC department, electrical and computer engineering department at the University of Waterloo has sort of a community problem. People aren't as connected here as I've seen in other programs. And it's a little bit of a shame. I have a lot of friends in management engineering, and their class is so tight-knit and happy. And they have a really nice lounge, which they go to, and they all, like, work there. And, like, before exams, they all study there together. And it's sort of a community space for them. ECE is the largest engineering department, and I think faculty at the University of Waterloo. So obviously it's a bit harder to have a cohesive group of friends within such a large program. I mean, they're definitely out there, and I've definitely met some wonderful people, but I feel like my whole graduating class as a whole isn't as connected as other engineering programs. And it's a difficult problem. How do you bring together like 400 to 500 people from all places of the world? But it's something that the EC department really needs to work on. Other than that, though, I'd say what I really like about my program is the breadth of careers that it sets me up to do. The program's sort of gauged towards one sort of job. It's gauged towards sort of being a firmware developer. Not to throw techno jargon in there, but they basically set you up to be like a software developer for tiny computer chips. And that's the main focus of the program. And some people complain that, oh, I don't want to do this. And it's hard to sort of get into different career fields. But because the program is so well known, and just staying in the program and not failing out is just an achievement in and of itself, anyone who graduates from my program can pretty much find a job there in whatever field they really want. And also the people in my program are just so resilient and smart and hardworking that, even if a door doesn't open for them right away, they'll find a way to open that door at some point in the future. There's a lot of really smart and inspirational people in my program, and, I think that they're going to do some great things.
So with this program, I know, are you able to really like use your creativity to the fullest in this? Because I heard that with like engineering in that like faculty, you're not really able to take many electives. So, and I mean, you take lots of like math courses, like all those. So, and that can obviously get like tiring. So like, where's this like, is there a break for maybe, because I know, two sides of the brain. So there's the left and the right. Which side is again the right is something I forget.
You're gonna have to ask an kinesiology student because there's no way I know this.
Yeah. So because I know you're working one part of your brain a lot more than maybe the other. It's like, are there any like creative aspects like in engineering?
For sure. There's obviously like the weeds of the program, like the math and the science that you just have to know to do some of these engineering tasks. But there's also the bigger picture that I think a lot of Waterloo students set themselves up to do in the future. So sure, there's the software developers who every day like code the stuff on your laptop and make, Google Chrome run. But there's also the engineering managers above those software developers who have to look at the big picture and think, what features does a customer care about? What features don't they care about? How can I make this tool, device, or engineering solution easier to use? And I think those are the really interesting and fascinating challenges that Waterloo engineers go on to take in the future. I definitely know that, I eventually want to transition myself to a bit more higher scope, bigger picture careers, because I think I have a good sense of what people like and don't like, and a good sense of listening to experts in their fields and knowing when to shut up. So yeah, you can definitely do a lot of cool stuff. And just to tell you some other cool engineering stuff you can do, you can also do user interface design, which is a really cool thing. I did a bit of website development early on in my co-ops, and it was a lot of fun. You get to make user interfaces, and people oftentimes complain on websites, it's so frustrating, I don't know where the close button is, or other stuff like this. And as a front-end developer, as a user interface designer, you can really try to make solutions that, customers have every day. Not just customers, but like your grandma. Like your grandma doesn't know how to use an iPad.
Yeah, that's so true. And I don't know, have you heard of the book Design of Everyday Things by Don Norman?
I haven't, no.
So yeah, like in that book, they kind of mentioned how when people are having trouble like figuring out some sort of like design, it's not that they're like they're like, for lack of better terms, like dumb, or like they don't know what they're doing. It's because of the design, like the design itself is bad. Kind of thing. So it's interesting. Yeah, you mentioned how it's nice that you get to work on that. And so you're very charismatic. You know how to talk. Like, you know how to speak with people. You know how to listen. And I've heard that with engineering. Because some people like have trouble with those people skills, and like those interpersonal skills, and that's so important moving forward. So how did you end up being just so yeah.
I don't know. I guess there's three experiences that I could point to in my life that sort of made me the way I am, especially when it comes to people. The first, I grew up an only child, so I didn't have a sibling or anyone at home to sort of learn how to talk with. So a lot of only children, and I think this is a stereotype in only children, they don't know how to really interact with people. And I think the opposite of charisma, they don't fully get social interactions. And, that's something I've struggled with. And because as a kid, I wasn't the strongest with talking with others and making connections and friendships, it's something that I've put a lot more emphasis in my adult life. So because I didn't have that as a kid, I pay attention to it more now. The second thing I'd say is I worked in customer service at a grocery store as a cashier, as a bag boy, and finally I worked at customer service. And learning to talk with people from all walks of life and also all moods. Sometimes they were good, oftentimes they weren't so good. It really developed a resilience for me. I learned how to just deal with situations and people as they come. Because not everyone you meet is going to be super friendly. And I think it's a big skill to learn how to work with the not friendly people. And finally, I did TV for a while. I went to a vocational high school, and my vocation was film. So I did a lot of different stuff in the film industry, just trying to learn and grow as a videographer. And the one thing that my film teacher made us do was do something called Man on the Street interviews. I think you mentioned you did them too with me, and that's how we met.
Yes, yeah. And I remember I did because you have a website. I remember on that website, I saw like videos of you like interviewing.
Yeah, and I don't know, you had to do that in your public speaking class for an assignment, right?
Yeah, we didn't have to, but like our group decided that why not do something like that, yeah.
And did you feel more confident after those man on the street interviews?
Oh, I think during, I feel like that I didn't really do. It was actually really tough because we had other group members, and my other group member, she was a lot more confident and a lot more comfortable. So she ended up taking over a lot of it. And I was nervous. So I was like pretty much doing more of the camera work because I was watching how she was doing it, and I almost felt bad. Like, oh, I can't like go up to how well she was doing it. So I feel like I wasn't really able to like improve, but it was my first time interviewing on the street. So it was a good experience.
Yeah. And, that's definitely, I guess, sort of the point I was trying to build to. Like, when you first start doing them, it's scary. It's really scary to go up to a random person and ask them to talk to you because 9 times out of 10, they say no. And rejection kind of hurts.
Right? Yeah.
But it's, I mean, I don't want to say that I learned to deal with rejection, but I kind of did, just going up to people and being confident enough to just ask them for a few minutes of their time is an important life skill. And like, you're trying to do coffee chats right now to grow your personal career and just make yourself a better person. And that's a skill that I've taken me in every single walk of life. And just to say one more thing, last summer I was working a job at a startup and it wasn't going super great. And I was sort of talking with one of my friends. I was like, I was lamenting to them that I have all these interpersonal skills that I think I have. I can talk to people. I can be friendly, and I'm a bit charismatic too. So I can usually like nudge the conversation the direction I want it to go in. And I was saying that I've never seen this actually help me out in life. I sit down behind a computer and I type code for a career. I don't know how talking to people has ever helped me out. And my friend said something very important to me. She said to me that, look, it's not your talking skills, your charisma, your interpersonal skills. It's not that they're going to take you far now. It's that they're going to take you far for the rest of your life. It's a longer time frame that those skills are going to help you out in. It's not short-term rewards that being a good talker can get you. It's the long-term horizons that really open up for you.
Okay, so like even though you might at the moment not think that you're like improving with all that, it's gonna show over time. It's just gonna come naturally, kind of.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's awesome. So we can now go into like Tesla and all of that because I'm sure everyone wants to know. I mean, you don't really. Like, he's the only person I know who worked at Tesla. Like, you don't really meet a lot of those people. I mean, yeah, so this is cool. So I wanted to, from the beginning, how did you find out about this Tesla opportunity? Yeah, starting up like with the interview process and everything. But before the interview, tell me kind of how you found it, yeah.
For sure. I guess it sort of goes back to my dad. I like thanking my parents because they really did do a lot for me growing up. My dad has said, like, if you want to go places in your career, you have to send out a lot of applications because you never know who's going to get back to you. And, for my 5th co-op term at Waterloo, my second to last one, I said, you know what, Dad, you're right. I'm going to just send out as many applications as I earthly can. So I pulled up all the companies that I wanted to work at. Apple, Tesla, Google, all those companies like that, the big ones. And I looked for every single internship that I was remotely qualified for, and I applied for them. So like everything at Google, everything at Apple, everything at Tesla, everything at Microsoft, like every single job that I could find. And I got 2 interviews out of that whole process. I got one at Google, and Google has a really long interview process. They have 4 rounds, and I made it to round 3, but I didn't make it past round 3. And I got a Tesla interview. And so that Google interview didn't really work out. It was a fantastic experience. It forced me to really prepare for coding interviews because I'm not sure if people outside the software industry really know, but getting a software job's a whole thing. Like, you have to study for basically a test to get the job. And that's really nerve-wracking because they can ask you like any question in like the programming space, and they expect you to solve it on the spot within like a certain amount of time while they're watching you type out the whole solution. It's like a lot of pressure. But going through the whole Google interview process really helped me out, develop a bit more confidence. And when I got to Tesla, I was like, no way, this is a mistake. They didn't want to talk to me. I don't know why they're even talking to me. And I later found out why they wanted to talk to me, because I was not necessarily working on the cars or like the products at Tesla. I was sort of on a smaller, I don't want to say innovation team, but the team was called a tooling team. Essentially, they were some of the big Tesla energy products are like really big batteries, and they're very dangerous to work with because they're super high voltage. Like, if you touch them, not only will they kill you, but they'll kill you very painfully. So working with these tools sometimes requires specialized products, and you can get a specialized product by either hiring an outside engineering firm and having them design like a service tool for you, or you can make that team in-house and hire your own engineers to build your own stuff. And that's what I was doing. I was working in a prototyping lab and building essentially new service tools for Tesla. And I know that's a bit vague, and I'll try to put it a bit more into perspective with you. I was working with Tesla Energy, and that's not the car division, but it's the big batteries for either homes or like solar farms. A problem with solar farms is that the sun doesn't shine all the time, right? So a solar farm can theoretically only output electricity when the sun is shining. That's a problem if we want to reduce carbon emissions, because we want to shift away from coal and natural gas power plants and shift towards solar panels. So the solution is you just put a big battery at the solar farm. So you charge up the batteries while the sun is shining, and then when the sun isn't shining, you just discharge the batteries, and then you have a constant power output. The problem, though, is that there's like 21 of these giant batteries that are in these big battery packs that Tesla sells. And each of them weighs about the same as a big Suburban, like an Escalade, like about 4,500 pounds. So you either need to get in a super heavy duty forklift to lift them, or you get like a huge Skyjack crane, which both are expensive. So one of the problems I was working on was, how do we transport these large batteries that weigh a lot and also are super high voltage and put them into position on like gravel fields where like the spacing's really tight and you can't really get a forklift in there. So the solution we built was basically a battery elevator. And I was the one responsible for like coding up the motors and making things move. So that's what I was doing there. And you asked me like how I got the job. And the reason I think I got the job is because I had a lot of experience. My boss looked at my resume and said, hey, this guy looks like he's seen a lot of different problems and knows how to solve them. And I think that's how I sort of got my foot in the door, because I didn't have the most experience doing that sort of prototyping work. But just because I was persistent, I found one manager who like really liked my experience and thought I was worth a shot. And I had one interview. It was only about 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes. And it wasn't even with the boss I was working with. It was with a different guy. And he really liked what he saw in me. And I had another offer on the table too. So it sort of forced their hand to sort of speed up hiring me. And I got the job. And, now we're here talking about it.
So it was not only because of your technical skills, but it was because you were able to go beyond that, and you were able to so they gave you these, you were able to come up with solutions to problems kind of almost on your own. Like that's awesome. And wow. Yeah, so going into it. So as an engineer who maybe wants to do something that you're doing, would you say that, yes, it's important to have all those technical skills and nail the technical side, but then you also have to think about kind of beyond? Did you also have like behavioral questions they asked you, or like?
Definitely. But, if you have a problem with the behavioral questions, that's just a matter of you not really preparing enough for an interview, in my opinion. They're pretty standard. They're just looking for someone that's not going to freak out and punch someone else when they get mad at work. So it's pretty basic stuff. What they're mostly looking for is someone who knows how to do the actual work.
Okay, yeah. And how long did it take you to like prep for that interview? Like how many did you was it weeks or?
So because I prepared for weeks to try to get that Google job. I really tried to like get it. And so I'd spent about probably a month just like every day doing a coding question, trying to get to the answer and figure it out. Because a lot of the coding questions are basically the same question, asked in a slightly different way. So the real trick is, like anyone who's done mathletics or like any math camp knows, anyone who's ever been forced to do like mathletics or math camp knows that the questions they ask are all variations of the same question. And in order to get them, you just have to do enough practice so that when they ask you a question, you recognize it.
Okay.
That's the trick. But yeah, so I prepared for a decent amount for that interview. And yeah, did you ask me any advice for?
I mean, well, like on top of that, you also had like schoolwork, right?
Yeah.
Like, so I guess just how do you, because I remember when I was starting my co-op search, that took just so much. And I wasn't like, just props to engineering students. They're not only do they have to like do all the insane hard like coursework they're given, they also have to like interview, like prepping for an interview. That's a whole other project. Like making sure you know all these like these technical questions. How do you do that? I can barely like. So
how do you do it?
How do you manage that? Like, what are your priorities? Like during co-op search, do you focus more on like that co-op process more than do you have to like switch your priorities or?
Well, definitely it's about switching priorities. I mean, I treat co-op as almost a job, or is there another class? Yeah. Co-op's another class that I need to do. And the grade I'm getting is a job. So you either fail or you pass. And at Waterloo, we have 6 co-op terms in our schedule, and you need to get 5 of them. So technically, you can fail the class one time and still be okay, but you need money to survive, so you try not to have that. But yeah, it's definitely, I don't know, you learn time management, sort of by trial by fire. I wasn't great at it to start, and I still have a ways to go, but I've gotten a lot better. This semester, I am in my 4th year now, so I'm able to have a bit more choice with electives. And that was really nice because I could take a bit easier of classes and make sure that I had a schedule that would set me up for success in all of them. I'm taking some hard classes mixed with some easy classes, so that way I can spend more time on the hard ones while still getting a good enough grade in the easy ones to make sure that, everything works out.
Yeah. So during that, did you take any like just all-nighters? Did you have to like, or?
I try not to do all-nighters. I try to be pretty disciplined about my sleep. I try to get at least 6 hours every night, and I usually get 8. It's very rare that I don't get less than 8. But it's discipline, It's a tough thing, but, you need to sort of mentally separate all your work. Like if I'm stressed about one class, I can't bring that stress with me from like one class to the next one. I need to sort of all leave it behind when I open up a new book. And it's a really tough skill to learn, and it's something that I'm still working with. But, one of the cool perks at Tesla was they paid for therapy for me. So I got to see a therapist, and that was really nice. I learned some techniques to sort of help calm myself down at the end of the day, calm myself down between classes, and it's really helped.
Wow. So going back to like Tesla then, so you did the interview, and then when did you almost find out like right away? How many days did it take?
I think it was about a week.
A week. Okay.
It was only a couple of days until I heard back, and I was pretty surprised.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty surprised because I thought the coding question that I got, the challenge I got, wasn't particularly hard. And I thought, like, this must be a mistake. This guy must just, like, not like my experience and just want to, like, end this interview quick. So he gave me an easy thing to look at. But no, it was positive news. And I'm really, I don't know. It was a really thankful, really cool experience to get that email back.
So, okay, so finishing off the interview, kind of, what was your, like, intuition? So you had, what was it saying? Like, you were leaning towards, oh, I'm probably not going to get the job. Like, you just were at least.
I don't know. I mean, this is a skill that I don't know I've sort of developed. Like, I'm a dreamer. I'm an optimist. I think I said to someone once that if I really thought the world was that pessimistic and awful, I would have killed myself a long time ago. But, you know, I constantly live in this world of happiness and optimism because I've lived in a world where I don't think like that. And it's awful. It's miserable. And so I constantly sort of, like, I didn't think I was going to get the job, to be honest with you. And we're talking about that now. Yeah. But did I think that at the time? No, I convinced myself I was going to get the job. I convinced myself I was going to get the Google job. And, you know, I didn't. But part of what I said earlier is I learned rejection at a kind of a young age. So I just moved on.
Wow. And so would you say then everything, like, kind of happens for a reason? I mean, you could, like, if you put in all the work necessary and it still doesn't happen, then it's just, like, not meant to be. Do you think? I actually
think you asked, like, is everything meant to happen for a reason? No, I fundamentally disagree with that. I think that there's so many extenuating circumstances, and especially with job hunting, it's so difficult to get some of these jobs, and people will disqualify you for random reasons. So, yeah, you know, I don't think everything happens for a reason. I think there's a lot of stuff that happens out there for senseless reasons. Okay. And I don't know. I just think that's how the world works.
Yeah. Okay. So, and then, because this Tesla internship was in California, right? So you had to, like, you fly out there and then you had to, like, obviously rent. How was it like live? Was this your first time in California, by the way?
This was my second time in California, but it was just my second time. But this was the first time I really got to, like, it was the first time living there.
Yeah, like immersing yourself in, like, this, just the environment, like the culture there. So how is it like? How is it like living there? And
well, I mean, to start, you talked about you get off the plane and I had to find somewhere to rent. I lived at. I actually went on a website for traveling nurses, and I found short-term furnished housing on this website called Furnished Finder, and I lived with this guy who is getting ready to be married in a few months, and so he wasn't really living there too much, but I rented a bedroom in his 2-bedroom place. You know, rent wasn't cheap. It was like $1,500 a month, and the whole place was about 900 square feet. So, you know, it wasn't a palace, but California is expensive. And what was the culture like? I mean, I don't know. The Bay Area is such a big area. It's sort of like, you know, like the Golden Horseshoe area of the GTA. No. Well, just, you know, take the area from Toronto to, like, Hamilton, and then maybe a bit down from Hamilton around the south coast of Lake Ontario. Like, the Bay Area is huge. Like, there's so many people that live there. That's something I didn't really expect, but it's just, there's so many people there.
Is it, like, a very business-oriented place, or is it, like, or family-oriented, like, business? Like,
it's definitely a place for business. You know, there are definitely families there, but cost of living is so expensive that most people there, I guess the general sense that I got was, like, this is a place you go when you're young and you want to work. Okay. However, for the people who did grow up in the area, it's really hard to convince them to leave. I feel like if you weren't born in, like, the San Francisco Bay Area, you're going to go there to work for a couple of years and leave. But if you were born there, you're never going to leave.
Interesting. And also, like, you also, I mean, so I know, like, you're going to be going to Vancouver. Is that, like, compared to, is California a lot more, like, expensive? Because Vancouver is also really expensive.
I think, oh gosh, I mean, I would say San Francisco is a bit more affordable than Vancouver, just purely because if you work in the right industries, if you work in something in STEM in San Francisco, you can get paid a lot more money, and then you can afford housing and stuff. In Vancouver, Canada's just a smaller country, so the scales of economy don't work as well. So there aren't as big as salaries out in Vancouver. So that's part of why we have a rental crisis out there, is because it's so gosh darn expensive, and there's so many barriers being put up to building more housing that, there's sort of an existing supply of housing, and everyone's sort of trying to gamble and pay more money to get into the same fixed size of houses.
Okay. And then so you like mentioned how California is like the Bay Area. It's a really great, would you say, a great place to kind of for business, like getting your name out there, maybe networking with so is the Bay Area mostly like there's like lots of tech companies? So if you're interested in that.
Well, it's not just tech companies. I mean, my girlfriend's mother works at a company called Roche. Roche is one of the biggest pharmaceutical companies out there. They make a lot of drugs, not like Pfizer for like over-the-counter stuff, but they make a lot of cancer drugs. And like if you're getting a Roche drug, typically like something serious is ailing you, and it's not your standard over-the-counter stuff, but they have their headquarters in San Francisco, or one of their North American headquarters, I think, in San Francisco. So there's a lot of like pharmaceuticals out there, lots of business, because with the tech companies comes people who invest in those tech companies. And obviously there's a lot of finance and business people out there who are making sure that all their investments are secure and the best possible investments they can make. So there's like business and finance out there. A lot of shipping too. California is close to China compared to the rest of the US. And because a lot of our stuff comes from China, there's a lot of ports and shipping operations going on there. I don't know. It's such a big area that like it's not defined. I mean, it is sort of defined by the tech industry because it's so big there, but it's not just the tech industry.
Good to know. And then were you able to like make any like connections, or are you still like in contact with any like people from there? Or?
Definitely. I definitely think my coworkers were a great group of people, and I definitely made some long-lasting friendships and connections there. I'm thinking about going back there for full-time work, so those are people that I want to continue my relationships with, both personal and professional. And I don't know, it can be a bit of a lonely place, though, I will admit. There's a lot of people who are hyper-focused on their careers, and those people aren't the type of people who are looking to make friends. They're looking to make connections, business connections. And it can be a lonely place. And especially for, the tech industry is unfortunately disproportionately male. There's like a heavy male influence. And so there's a lot of young guys, because that's just the demographic, who move out to take these tech jobs in California. And a lot of them can't find significant others of the opposite sex just because they're like the gender ratio is a bit off, because the tech industry is attracting all these guys and not enough like women are there. Like it's just, if you keep adding guys to one area and not as many girls, eventually there's going to be a lot more guys than girls. And if you don't already have a partner, I've heard it's quite difficult to find one out there. But I guess it sort of comes back down to my whole philosophy. It's how you look at life. And it's unfortunate that people might not be able to find the friendships and relationships that they want, but it's still a place with a lot of opportunity.
Okay. Yeah, because it is like, I feel like the older you become, like adult friendships, like it's hard to form. A lot of the friendships or maybe the relationship you make, they kind of start from a young age, or for example, or maybe like in university, and some people, they stay with those friends. But then once you're like in the real world, like the work world, you're so like hyper focused with like your job, and it's just it's a much harder, because then people are also like starting families and they're just figuring things out. So it's like I feel like tough to make friendships. But then I guess if you have like a like-minded, like you're able to form those like-minded friendships. Okay, so I guess you touched a bit about like the key projects you worked on, but maybe you can mention the air tags.
Oh,
thing.
for sure. Yeah. So I think it's not officially gone through yet, but it's at the finish line. So I can talk about it now. Like all engineers at the University of Waterloo need to do a capstone project to graduate, just sort of proving that we can take our engineering knowledge from our courses and build something. It doesn't have to change the world, but the university wants us to prove that we can engineer at least one thing before we leave here. So my group was struggling to find an idea to work with, and I mentioned this to my boss at Tesla, and he said, we have a ton of work to do. We can give you something. So we're actually doing a collaboration between the University of Waterloo and Tesla on this capstone project, and we just finally resolved everything with the contract writers and the lawyers and made sure everyone was happy. And now we have this draft agreement to work between the university and this large multinational, which is really cool. And that's what we've been spending the past 4 months working on, is just getting an agreement between these two large entities. And yeah, the project that we're working on is essentially, like you said, air tags, but for my team, the energy service team at Tesla. I mentioned a battery lifter. That thing has a small computer chip in it. And what we can do is we can actually hook into that computer chip and get some readings and data from it and send it back via the internet to my boss at Tesla. So we can just log into a website and take a look at a dashboard, basically, of all the details of all his tools that he's shipped out to service technicians. I'll go into a bit more of the motivation for the project. Like, these service technicians are basically like mechanics. They fix the stuff. And one thing about them is they're lovely people, but sometimes they aren't the best with communicating like exactly what their whole tool set is. A lot of people will just like keep ordering like different tools that they can and throw them in the back of their car, and that's where they stay for the rest of their life. And it can become really hard to track where some of these very expensive things are. So part of the motivation for this project is using this dashboard and hooking into the small computer chips available to some of these service technicians. We can actually provide live GPS updates of where these tools are. So that way, you can do a lot more data-driven business decisions. So, like, let's say there's there's 20 service technicians, like mechanics in San Francisco, that are responsible for fixing the Tesla stuff in San Francisco. Instead of shipping someone a new tool for them to use when they request it, you can take a look at the dashboard and say, oh, your buddy down the street has that tool that you're looking for. Just go borrow it from them. And there, you've already saved the cost of one new tool because you didn't ship it out and create it. You just had these guys working together to share. So it's stuff like that that can introduce a lot of optimizations. And currently, the energy division of Tesla is growing 100% year over year for the past 2 or 3 years in a row, which means it's growing exponentially. It's getting exponentially huge. They're struggling to keep up. They literally can't build products fast enough for how much people want to buy them. So they are just trying to optimize their logistics now while they're still small-ish. So that way, when they get larger and they keep exponentially growing, their logistics can keep up with the realities of the industry.
Interesting. And did you have to because this seemed like a very big project, it seemed like you had to do a lot. Did you ever have to work overtime, or how was the just work culture was it tough? Was it hard? When you first started, was it hard to kind of get into routine?
I'm a bit of a workaholic, as it might have been self-evident, but yeah, I definitely worked a lot while I was there. My team was pretty good. They wanted me to get results, and they didn't force me to work overtime, but they let me work as much as I want. And because the overtime rate was pretty good, I kept working a lot of days, some weekends, not every weekend, but I definitely worked some weekends, Saturday, Sunday straight. So 7-day work weeks. But yeah, that was all myself. My boss never forced me to work that much. And I definitely wanted to get something out of that interaction. And I definitely think I made some impactful progress by putting in some overtime.
Okay, so with that, so since you said you worked, sometimes you had to work 7 days, or you decided to work 7 days a week, do you like doing this better than like studying? Yeah. Really? So you would like work instead of like studying like all day?
I prefer working than studying because I find in class a lot, you're not doing anything really useful. Like you might be doing a calculation, like you might be learning how to do calculus, right? Mm-hmm. And you're solving all these problems, but they don't really add value to anything. Just because I know how to integrate x squared doesn't mean that the world's any better off than when I didn't know how to integrate x squared. Mm-hmm. When you're doing actual engineering work, you can make a difference and you can go off and see your things change things. Maybe not the whole world, definitely not the whole world, but a part of it. And that's really cool to see. And that's the motivation that gets me excited and gets me passionate about the work I do. So yeah, I definitely much prefer working than doing just school.
Okay, so all the courses you have to take, they're all going to be they're all going to be worth it, and you're gonna even though you may not be enjoying some of the classes, like you're gonna have lots of great great experiences in your co-op, and so yeah, I feel like maybe don't worry too much, and then it's gonna get better from
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more.
Wow. And then what advice? Well, okay, first of all, was there anything you were surprised about once you started working at Tesla? Something you didn't expect coming into it?
Ooh, yeah, absolutely. Tesla doesn't certainly pay its employees shabby. It definitely pays them decently well. Mm-hmm. But they aren't the highest bidder when it comes to engineering work in California. You can definitely make more at a company like Apple or Google than Tesla. Okay. And it's sort of funny, Tesla sort of has this reputation of working as engineers super hard and super long, and they only stay there for a couple of years before they move on to a different job. Mm-hmm. And there's sort of an internal joke that 1 year at Tesla is 2 years of engineering anywhere else, just because the work goes so quick. But that being said, they aren't the highest payer in the Bay Area. They definitely pay pretty well, better than a lot of money people will see ever in their life, but they could be paying more. But I guess that's sort of the whole business strategy, because I don't know if you know this, but cars aren't exactly a super high profit margin industry. Things like software are a lot more profitable because there's not too much physical stuff to maintain when Google pushes out a new update. When you build a new car, you need to service that car for 10, 20 years. You need to have a plan and infrastructure and people to fix the car, mechanics, for 20 years. And that's something you don't really need to do with software. So it's a bit of a different industry, which is why there's a bit of a lower salary, but it's not you're not going to be making $250K a year at Tesla unless you're really high up there. You're going to have to work for your money, but the stuff that Tesla is doing is pretty cool to everyone that works there. So that's why there's that passion. Yeah.
So that's definitely a good thing to know if you're considering Tesla internship. And then I'm sure a lot of people would love to work at Tesla. So what advice do you have for other students interested in acquiring a co-op at Tesla, or just any Silicon Valley company in general? What advice?
Yeah. And so I'll talk about this. And one thing that I didn't mention that I definitely think helped get me this internship is on my resume, I was working on a robotic bartender. A
robotic bartender?
Yeah, a robotic bartender that would make you a drink, which is a pretty cool side project. So basically the premise of it is I have a website up, and using my website, you could send a command to a little Arduino. It's a little computer chip. And using some motors and servos, it would move a drink, pour different amounts of liquor and like mixers and like actually make you a drink. And I have this whole plan blueprinted out and ready to go. I built all the software infrastructure for it. And I was just struggling with the database and server side of things, like how to connect my website to the Arduino a little bit. And that's when I got hired by Tesla. And unfortunately, at the time, because I was in the process of getting laid off from one of my current co-op employers, I never finished the product because I was scrambling to try to get my job back, which I did. But I never did end up finishing the project. But I did all the stuff that realistically that Tesla wanted me to know. Like I did all the software stuff, and that was my job at Tesla, was the software stuff. So they didn't care that I didn't like hook together the motors as much because they have people that can do that a lot better than me. So just by doing that project, I gained a lot of the skills that I needed. And also it was a fun idea. It was like it's not just like, oh, I built Tinder for dogs as my side projects. Like I built something that people get excited about and like passionate about. Mm-hmm. So you asked me, do I have any advice for people who want to get a job like that? And yeah, I mean, first of all, don't beat yourself up because there's a lot of rejection and it's a lot of luck getting a job like this. You could have all the right stuff on your resume. You could hire someone to like professionally edit your resume and you could know it all and you still might not get the job. So it is tough, but ultimately keep your head up. And if you really want to make yourself stand out, do projects that people are passionate about and people care about. Like make something that people can get excited about and then be excited about that project. People love talking to other people who are passionate. And when you show that passion, that drive, and that energy, people pick up on that and they become enthusiastic about you because you're enthusiastic about yourself. So, again, it's a lot of luck, unfortunately, getting a job out there, especially in this job market. We're in a bit of a recession, but ultimately keep your head up and just keep being excited about yourself because you're going to be your best salesman.
Nailed it. Just keep being excited about yourself and then that energy will exude. I just love it. So if you could restart your 4 months at Tesla, what would you do differently? Any like habits you built that you would have liked to break or yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I'm definitely a bit of an anxious person. I definitely have a lot of anxiety, and I don't know why I bring this with me to every job, but I'm always terrified that they're gonna fire me, and so I work my tail off because I want to show them that I'm worth it. And especially at Tesla, I thought that this is such a I thought this was such a prestigious thing to do. And I know so many people who would just kill for the opportunity to have what I had, that I thought I had to work my tail off because there's so many other people who want to be in my shoes right now that I need to prove that I'm worth the shoes that I'm in. I'm the best person for the job. So I tell myself to chill out a little bit. Apparently they don't fire interns that often. And my experience at a smaller startup that was laying people off was sort of an outlier, because that was my internship before Tesla. I almost got laid off halfway through my internship because I don't want to go into detail, but I almost got laid off, and that was just a horrible experience. So when I got to Tesla, I was freaked out because I thought if I wasn't performing, they were gonna have me gone yesterday. Mm-hmm. So I tell myself to chill out. I'd also tell myself, it's okay to not know what you're doing right away, because at any job, no matter how smart you are, you're gonna have to take some time to learn stuff. So I guess in addition to that, I just have to tell myself that people have empathy for new employees right off the bat. But no, I think I I tried to live each day that I had at Tesla, like, not like it was my last, but like to its fullest, because there was a lot I wanted to get out of that internship. And I think I got it. Like I'm a really curious guy, and I was able to pick the brains of senior engineers at Tesla about different decisions that the business was making and different decisions about their product lineup. And that was such a cool experience. Like I got to go to their former headquarters in Palo Alto, which is like, the fancy tech hub of America. And it was just so cool just to be sitting and standing beside these like people who, make decisions that are in the news all the time. But yeah, I mean, I guess I would say to anyone else who has the opportunity to work at any company, Tesla or otherwise, just like, don't be afraid to go up to the big bosses and ask questions. I think that's where I found a lot of success. Like ask people, because the interns, this is something a lot of people, young people don't know, but as a young person, you have sort of a pass to go up to older people and ask them a question, and they will take you a bit more seriously than like maybe like a late 30-year-old, because you're young, you're still learning, and they've been in your exact shoes before, and they know how scared you probably are. So as a student, as a young person, you have a lot more leeway to go up to a really big, important person at a company and politely and respectfully ask them a question or two.
Just being like curious. Yeah. So I love how you said like really just not putting, because we just put so much pressure on ourselves, more pressure than, and then just kind of, chilling out, just understanding that it's all like a learning process and just being curious about it. Would you say there's like a such thing as like dumb, like asking like dumb question? Like,
okay. Like yes and no. Like no, in the sense that if you're confused about something, you have to ask, you have to learn it. The longer you put it off, not knowing something, the worse it's going to be. Mm-hmm. So like, no, there's no dumb questions, but no, there is no dumb questions. But if you take a second and you step back, yes, there are some dumb questions. Like, for example, if the question you are about to ask can be solved with a quick Google search, maybe don't ask that question. Yeah. Or, if your boss already explained something to you and like sent you a document telling you all the details, maybe don't ask that question. Yeah. But like 9 times out of 10, no, there's no dumb questions.
So, almost wrapping up, I really want to know what's next for you, because you are going to be graduating. So you're going on to your 5th co-op. You're going to be graduating next spring, is it?
Yeah, April 2024.
Insane. So what's next for you? What are you hoping to do after graduation?
Yeah, so my next co-op's really exciting. I'm either going to be working for more green energy stuff. I'd either be working at a solar panel company, which is making the inverter, which is the thing that allows you to turn your solar panel electricity into electricity that the grid can use, which is cool. Or I'd be working at a ship company, something sort of totally random, but I'd be working in their innovation lab at a Vancouver shipbuilder. So I have 2 really exciting options lined up for me, and I'm actually waiting to hear a reply from someone else, and then I'm going to make my final decision today and figure out which one I'm going with.
Yeah, speaking about that, so you had, so like tell me more about, so are you like, you pretty much found a...
It took a lot of effort because I've never really been to Vancouver professionally. I don't really have any connections out there. So as someone from like an Ontario university, it was really, really difficult to break into the Vancouver sort of space because I just didn't have connections, and Waterloo isn't as close with some of the companies. But I sent out tons of applications again, and I had a couple of interviews, and I definitely did not get every job I interviewed for, even though I came in with a decent amount of experience and passion and whatnot. So it's sort of like I said earlier, it's luck of the draw. Even if you are a good student and you know what you're doing, you're not going to get every job. And yeah, so after a lot of time and effort, I was able to land 2 interviews that did yield some positive results. And now I just need to make the final decision, which is exciting.
Because so this is starting in September then. So you'll be like, what's the process like? So you'll be moving to Vancouver, like starting when?
Yeah, I am starting my road trip. I'm road tripping a car out to Vancouver starting August 25th. And we're going to do, I think, a 9-11 day road trip, stopping in some different parks. We're going to Pancake Bay, which is a park outside Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario on Lake Superior. Phenomenal. If you've never been to Lake Superior, you should check it out. It's beautiful up there. We're then making sort of a mad dash to the prairies, and we have some campsites lined up in Kootenay, which is a beautiful park. Never been there before, so it'll be exciting. And then I'm visiting some family out in the interior of British Columbia before finally landing in Vancouver.
It's so nice that you're able to really just like have this like really nice like traveling break.
Yeah.
And then you go back to work.
Yeah, I don't spend my money on eating out or clothes or too many fancy things. The one thing I do spend money on is travel. That is my weakness.
You know what? And it's so much better because those memories, like, they're worth every penny.
Yeah.
And so good. So would you say you're like minimalistic when it comes to like clothes and like all that?
I try to be. I try to live within my means. I try to like eat in as much as possible, and the money I do allow myself to splurge on, it is all travel, whether that be to visit family members or, I mean, it's mostly been to visit family members, but just traveling nonetheless is just something that I found really rewarding, and it's worth the investment for me.
Mm-hmm. And are you like, are you excited for this co-op? Do you think it's going to be better than Tesla, or do you have any like expectations going into? Are you trying to not go into? Because I heard like if you have expectations, you're going to get disappointments. Are you just trying to go into it with like no expectations? Like it might not exceed Tesla, but it's still.
Yeah, I hate to say this, but I think I kind of peaked at my last co-op because, working at Tesla was just, there's, if you asked the first year me, like when I first got to Waterloo, Ontario, what job I wanted to work at, I would have said I wanted to be an engineer at Tesla. And I did that. And that was just sort of a dream come true. It was sort of a fever dream. But again, wasn't all sunshine and roses. Sometimes I broke down. Sometimes the engineering work was tough, but I got through nonetheless and had an overall really positive experience. And for Vancouver, it's definitely going to be a bit different, but it's really exciting. I've never really lived in the downtown core of a city, and I'm living in East Vancouver, right beside a SkyTrain stop. So I'm going to be taking the SkyTrain every day to work.
SkyTrain? I've never heard of that.
Yeah, it's their metro.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it goes.
Is it kind of like the ski lift kind, like, but it's like in a little box?
It's like a monorail.
Oh.
Yeah. It's really exciting. It goes above ground and then it goes underground at some points. It's really cool.
We're gonna insert a pic if you're watching on YouTube. That's so insane. So you're gonna get like, so you've been to California, you're gonna feel like completely different environment. It's gonna be completely different change, and like, do you think you're gonna have to like adapt to it or maybe?
You know what? Definitely a little bit. I'm scared of the rain, if I'm gonna be honest. I don't know if it's gonna make me get seasonal depression or whatnot, but hopefully I'll make it through.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's definitely going to be a bit of a change. And what I'm most excited for, though, is my partner and I have been doing long distance every co-op. Like, just to give a shout out to my partner, she's a geological engineer and she's done some really cool stuff too. Like 2 co-ops ago, she was an archaeologist up in northern BC in Prince George. So she was, doing archaeological assessments of the forest before they were cut for a logging industry. Mm-hmm. And that was a wild experience for her. She'd never really gone off on her own. She's from Guelph, so she goes home every weekend to eat dinner with her parents. But she did it. She went out west. She had her wild experience. She got flown to work in helicopters. Like, it was a really cool experience. But, we have been doing distance. Like, things haven't worked out where we can live in the same city, but they finally are this time. Like, we both have jobs in Vancouver, and we're both going to be living together. We have this like beautiful 1-bedroom with a great fireplace. So it's sort of going to be a preview for what my life is going to be like after graduation, because like I'll be an adult living in a city with a full-time job, with a full-time partner. Like, this is like, it's as real as it can get.
It's so awesome because like you said in California, you said it was a bit more lonelier, and now it's like you'll have her to go home to, and it's like even if like something isn't working out at the job, it's like maybe you're having a bad day there, you're gonna have her by your side, and that's like so I feel like it's gonna be such a awesome like time. You're gonna have a great time.
It's really exciting.
This is so Tesla was going so well for you, and like it's gonna just go so much better from here on out.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a crazy life. And I'll be honest, like, you know, I don't know how we're going to work it out between my partner and I's jobs, like where we end up, but we'll work something out. And nonetheless, I'm really excited for what life has in store for me. It's the next couple years of my life are going to be a wild ride that I only get to go on once. So I'm really going to try to enjoy the ride while I'm on it.
Yes. And also, we were talking, I mean, you also said about like taking risks now because we have this like safety net and really just being okay, like allowing yourself to fail sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I said this the other day when we were talking about preparing for this interview. Like, we're so young. Like, I don't have a car right now. I don't have a mortgage I have to pay. I do have rent, but I need somewhere to live. So, you know, it's kind of at the cost of doing this whole life thing. But there's so few responsibilities that I realistically have right now. I don't have a wife yet. I don't have kids. I don't have a dog or a cat I need to take care of. I'm really free to sort of like fail at different stuff. Like, gosh, if I had kids and a family and a mortgage and a car payment I needed to make, I don't know if I'd take risks because I would need to put the interests of my family first. But I don't have those things sort of holding me down. So going out to Vancouver for 4 months and road tripping a car, my girlfriend's car out there, like, why not? Like, I have the time, like the energy to do this. And I got to take some risks. Like, I might hate Vancouver because I don't know what it's like, but I also might love it. There's so much unknown out there. You got to go find it and see if you like it.
You just have to like embrace the unknown and just accept that it's here. Like, the unknown is going to be here, and you just have to like, would you say you're like, it's hard because things like can come up spontaneously. You know, are you someone who loves to plan like really far ahead? And if things don't go maybe as they planned, are you like disappointed about it, or how do you like manage?
How do I manage that?
Yeah.
Well, like I said, like I'm a chronic optimist. I like living in a positive mindset. And because of how unpredictable my life is right now, like, I don't know where I'm going to be living 5 months from now. I don't have housing yet lined up for this winter for my final term at Waterloo. I don't have stability really in my life. Like, it's constantly crazy. So I can only plan for short amounts of time, but it's sort of beautiful that way because, you know, every 4 months is a whole new adventure I get to embark on. Like, it is like a completely different wild ride I get to go on. And I have no idea what it's going to happen. It's like I'm at a Disney park with a blindfold on, and then like I take the blindfold off every 4 months and see what ride I'm about to go on. It's really exciting.
Thank you so much, Nicholas, once again for being on the first episode. We definitely stirred passion and sipped innovation today. Everyone watching this, I hope you enjoyed this podcast because I have a lot more guests lined up to chat with, and they're all as equally as inspiring. So be sure to stay tuned. And until next time, any final words?
No, stay passionate, stay hungry.
Yes. See you later.